in this session is Tom Black. Tom is a composite board member with the Georgia Composite Board. He's one of 3 licensed professional counselors who serves on the board. I'm your host, Dr. Richard Long, and along with 2 licensed marriage and family therapists, I also serve on the board. Tom, welcome. Glad you could join me.
Thank you, Richard.
In the state of Georgia, as in most states in the United States, the board serves 3 functions. To provide a clinical reference point for practitioners through licensure, to enhance the quality of the profession and to the quality of the services it provides through rulemaking, and to provide consumer protection through discipline. Before we explore those issues, I'd like to find out a little bit more about our guest. Tom, could you tell us a little bit about your educational background and professional experience that kind of brought you to the board?
Sure. I've been, I moved here with the military to Georgia and I attended graduate school at Georgia Southern University. My program was school psychology at the time. I completed a master's degree and a specialist degree there, and then I moved on to a PhD program in counseling psychology. I've been in private practice since 1998. I worked under supervision until I got licensed in 2001. In private practice, I've thought I would work primarily with adolescents because I came out of the court system in juvenile justice, but I found very quickly that that was not my forte, that I moved more into couples and children, and that led to coming out of working for the court system, leading to forensic work. So I do a lot of custody evaluations, and I do mental status exams and competency exams for the court system. I work now in a private practice supervising several other practitioners. My office, we have maybe 10 other people who are working under me or with me as colleagues. So I've been doing that now since 2001.
Wow, considerable experience. Let's talk a little bit about this process and how it works. Applicant fills out some kind of set of documents. Sort of what happens from a time when they fill out documents till those documents are approved? How does that work?
Well, the documents are received. The application is a pretty onerous process, the packet itself. It's a great deal of paperwork. They fill that out. They have to submit accompanying documents to include their transcripts, a secure and verifiable document of who they are, driver's license or passport, as well as on occasion test scores. As professional counselors, we have different levels of licensure. We have associate professional counselors, which don't require any type of completed supervision or directed experience, but require at least a master's degree in counseling or a related field, a certain number of appropriate courses, and then a completion of the national exam, which is either the National Counseling Exam or the Certified Clinical Mental Health Counselor's Exam. Once the application is completed and sent in, we need the accompanying documents from the schools they attended, their test scores, and on occasion forms filled out by their supervisors, their directors, and reference forms. Once all of that is received by the administrative staff, they then upload it to a secure server here, website that we have access to as a board, and they create special TIFF files, which are similar to PDF files. We then download those applications and review them to make sure all of the content is correct, all of the information is correct. A big holdup with applications is something's missing. A lot of times we'll get calls or questions about where their application is, and it turns out we're still waiting for a reference form or a transcript.
So those are the sort of typical problems that happens
before it gets to us.
Some forms not filled out.
Right, and then once it gets to us, we look to make sure they've taken the appropriate classes, that their degree program was certified or accredited, and that they have the appropriate supervision and direction. The biggest problem once it gets to us is they don't have the appropriate number of hours over the correct amount of years of direction and supervision. As a part of our process as professional counselors, we believe strongly that you have to have an ongoing interaction with a colleague or another individual. So we require 3 years of post-master's degree experience and supervision, and that's pretty standard. Some states are 2 years, some are 3. And in that time, we require 600 hours per year of direction as counselors, so it ends up being 1,800 hours, and 30 hours per year of supervision. Supervision is where I would come to you and we would review my caseload or the cases I'm involved in, and you would give me clinical feedback. Of course, different levels of degrees require different levels of supervision. If you have a master's degree, it's 4 years supervision and direction. If you have a master's degree with an approved internship, it's 3 years. If you have an education specialist degree, it's 2. And if you have a PhD without an internship, it's a year. With an internship, they can get licensed immediately. So it's a pretty involved process, and there's a lot of places. I guess it's similar to long division. There's a lot of places where you can make a mistake if you don't carry the numbers down properly, and that leads to a lot of individuals having issues. There are also questions on the application. Do you have a drug or alcohol issue, or any arrests, or any censure from any other professional or licensure board? And if there are any questions to that, we have to receive accompanying documentation. From time to time, we may review that and still have questions, and we'll ask the applicant to come in, and then we'll interview them and find out exactly where they're at and what they're doing. So, but once we receive a completed application, it's usually all done within 30 days.
Wow.
We only meet once a month, but we get in, we review every application that has been completed that month, and we approve or request additional information.
Wow. Now, roughly, how many applications get approved a month?
We, as professional counselors, we do about 100, 120 a month, so
okay.
It's quite a bit.
Okay, that certainly is. So I guess for anybody who is applying, it is pay attention to what those applications say, pay attention to the forms, follow the instructions on the form, do exactly what it is they say, and you're less likely to be held up. If you fail to do what those documents say, you're going to be behind.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, if you dot the I and cross the T, you can get through the process fairly quickly. But a lot of times for a lot of applicants, they're beholden by somebody else. If I come to you and ask you to do a reference and you say yes, and I give you the form, I submit my application, and 3 months later you still haven't submitted your reference, it's not a completed application, it's still sitting there waiting.
Okay.
So that can be a big holdup for a lot of people as well.
Let's move to talk a little bit about complaints. I've taken a look at nationwide what the studies are saying, and they talk about things like a practitioner having sex with their client, fraud, particularly Medicaid right now is a big issue, practicing while impaired, and I assume that Georgia's probably no different. But what I'm really curious about is, well, how does the board handle a consumer complaint? What do you do once somebody has identified that there's a problem?
All complaints are reviewed. Once a complaint is received, we have a special subcommittee that handles that, and I'm not on that subcommittee, but my understanding is that once a complaint is received, the individual who the complaint is about has an opportunity to respond. They can respond in writing. If, however, there's a more significant need, they come in for an interview, or if they haven't responded, they come in for an interview. They can then, the committee will then make recommendations either to, okay, the complaint was not an issue, it was an insignificant situation, or there's some vendetta possibly against individuals, some business gone wrong, or a lot of forensic work leads to, you know, if I do an evaluation or do therapy with you and you don't like my recommendations to the court, then you might make a complaint.
Seeks revenge, yeah.
Right.
Somebody's.
So that's a major issue. If, however, there is cause for concern, then the board or the committee recommends some remediation.
Okay.
It could be you write a plan and you follow the plan. It can be a consent order where we recommend certain things and you agree to follow them. We have individuals who have to comply and seek supervision. We're really big on that if you, for example, have a boundary issue with a client where you're maybe dual relationship with somebody, then we would say you need consultation and supervision for a period of 6 months, and we want reports every month or every quarter from your supervisor to see how you're doing. And then at the end of that, we review it again, and if everything's good, then we feel confident. If not, then we move forward. If you refuse to work on a consent order, then we will move forward with the litigation process and move against your licensure and try to keep the public safe in that regard. That's the primary goal of our board, is to ensure public safety, and that the people in our professions are representing that in an appropriate manner. And the lines get fairly blurry when you look at all of the different ethical requirements and the legal requirements within our fields.
It sounds like you have to be fairly thoughtful about You want to make sure that the punishment fits the crime, that you want to make sure people have an opportunity to remedy the situation if that's what they want to do, and that you're also at the same time keeping the consumer in mind and recognizing that protection is fairly important.
That's right. And I guess I should, that's exactly right, but I should also say we have an attorney, a state attorney from the Attorney General's office who sits on the board as well and advises in those matters. So, because it gets pretty complicated when you get into the legal matters. But that's right. The ultimate goal is to ensure public safety, but not to necessarily overreach and hurt somebody who maybe, like you said, just has a vendetta type complaint against them. So they are investigated. We also have investigators that work for the office that go out and seek information and find information on if we need additional information on a complainant or what's going on exactly, then they'll go out to the field and gather that information and report back to the subcommittees.
Let's move to talk a little bit about rulemaking. My guess would be things have to get revised frequently. If you were to kind of look at the last year, what are a couple rules that the board's taken a look at? What seems to be historically, where's the focus been on rulemaking?
Well, like you said, I think society is changing fairly rapidly at this point. I think there should be a distinction made before we get into rules that there are laws that are legislatively enacted and enforced by the state, and then as a board we're allowed to interpret those laws and make rules. And the rules are the things that we can make changes and adjustments to. Any law changes have to be done in Atlanta under the legislature. So what we have done primarily the last I've been on the board a little over a year, our primary focus has been related to trying to make the laws easier for applicants to read and understand, because we get a lot of complaints or comments about how obtuse the laws are and how difficult they are to understand.
Too much legalese.
Right. So we're trying to improve the readability of them all. We're also trying to standardize them in a way where it makes sense logically, instead of having to look here or look there and then go back here and then do this and then do that. Trying to streamline it so that you're not having to skip around, because I get a headache reading.
Right.
So
and I would think things like technology, just what does this computer screen look like versus a printed page, and having to remember visually how much information can you put on a page, and all that has to be.
And that's kind of a natural extension. We're really struggling, and it's been for the last couple of years, I know, because we still have letters and emails and documentation in our files from previous board members about how do we deal with technology in our field, and it's a big issue with continuing education. And that has been one of the major rule changes in the last year, has been that we've restricted the amount of ongoing or online continuing education for our licensed practitioners to 10 hours every 2 years. They're required to complete 35 hours of continuing education to make sure that they're current and aware of where the going on. They're also required to complete 5 hours of ethics during those 2 years. And in the past, certain people would come in with 35 hours all taken in one day on an online course, and we want to limit that. Our belief is that we will get less complaints and less sanctions against our professionals if they're having to interact with other professionals. Something that might sound like a good idea in my mind at the time, if I run it by you, as soon as I say it, I realize, okay, that's not a good idea. And we want to avoid that by making sure our professional counselors, social workers, and marriage and family therapists go to conferences and interact with other professionals and are not out there on an island by themselves. So that's been probably the biggest rule change we've had this year. We've gotten a lot of questions and comments and concerns about that.
Well, when you push to the future, a number of counselors are looking at things like e-counseling or e-supervision. What are you guys thinking about in terms of future rules? What direction do you think things might go?
That's something we struggle with at every meeting, and in between the rules committee we talk about this, that there's a big push for more of the distance learning, more of the Skype type interaction, more of the webinars for the CEs, and we're looking at that. We'd like to think that we're forward thinking in that regard. Another issue you brought up is the e-counseling, and I just came back from a national conference where I met with board representatives from all 50 states, and every state is grappling with that right now. The idea that I can do therapy with you over the phone, or that I can do therapy with you when you're in Washington, D.C. and I'm on the beach in Florida.
Right.
So it becomes something that we want to look into and we want to be progressive about, but we also want to use caution and look at ensuring that the safety of the individual, the consumer, the patient, the client, the person who's getting counseling is protected.
Yeah. So significant issues, both dealing with the present and speculating on what the requirements are going to be in the future, and thinking about those. With me today has been Tom Black. Tom is one of 3 licensed professional counselors serving on the Georgia Composite Board. Our focus has been on 3 functions of the board, looking at the issues of licensing, discipline, and rulemaking. I'm Dr. Richard Long, and thank you for joining me in today's session.